The space radio had been quiet for 3 weeks. Commander Jake Morrison stared at the empty screen in front of him. No messages, no calls for help, nothing at all from New Haven Colony. New Haven was a mining town on a distant moon. 8,000 people lived there. Men, women, and children who had left Earth to dig for special metals in the rocks. They were supposed to stay for 5 years. The pay was good, and the work was hard, but it was honest work. Jake had been a space commander for 15 years. He had seen bad things happen to colonies before. Ships broke down. Equipment failed. Sometimes people got sick. But this felt different. The last message from New Haven had been scared and fast. Someone was attacking them. They needed help right away. Then the radio went dead. The USS Liberty was not a warship. It was fast and could travel far, but it only had small guns. Jake knew they might be flying into trouble, but he had to check. That was his job. Someone had to see what happened to those people. Lieutenant Lisa Parker sat at the control desk. She was young but smart. Her job was to watch the radar and tell Jake what was out there. "Sir, I am seeing something strange near New Haven," she said. Her voice was worried. "Big energy readings. Whatever hit them is still there." Jake felt his stomach get tight. If the attackers were still at New Haven, his small ship would be in real danger. But he could not turn back now. Those people needed help. As they got closer to the moon, they could see the damage. The space stations that protected New Haven were broken and twisted. Mining ships floated dead in space. Their metal sides had burned marks from weapons Jake had never seen before. Dr. Kevin Walsh was the science officer on the Liberty. He was older than the others and had studied space for many years. Kevin ran tests on the energy readings from the area. "Commander," he said in a quiet voice, "I do not think pirates did this. This is something else, something new." The energy patterns were unlike anything in Earth's computers. The readings showed technology that could bend space itself. Jake had heard stories about aliens, but Earth had never met any. Not until now. The Liberty flew down toward the moon's surface. New Haven looked normal from far away. The buildings were still standing. The lights were still on. But no one answered their radio calls. Jake made a hard choice. They would land and look for survivors. His crew was small, just 12 people. If this was a trap, they might all die. But they had to try. The landing pad at New Haven was empty. No ships, no people. Just the wind blowing dust across the metal platform. Jake put on his spacesuit and stepped outside. Lisa and Kevin came with him. The rest of the crew stayed with the ship in case they needed to leave fast. The main street of New Haven was empty too. Doors hung open. Personal things lay scattered on the ground, but there were no bodies. No blood. The people had just disappeared. "Look at this," Kevin said. He was pointing at strange marks on a building wall. The marks looked like they had been made by some kind of energy weapon. The metal was melted and twisted in ways that human weapons could not do. They walked deeper into the town. The shops were empty. The homes were empty. But the power was still on. The air machines were still working. It was like everyone had just walked away in the middle of their day. Lisa checked her scanner. "I am getting life signs from the mining tunnels," she said. "People are alive down there." Hope filled Jake's chest. The underground tunnels were where the miners worked. They were deep and strong. If people were hiding there, they might be safe. The entrance to the tunnels had been blocked. Heavy metal plates covered the opening. Someone had welded them shut from the inside. Jake knocked on the metal with his tool. The sound echoed in the empty street. After a long minute, a voice came from behind the metal. "Who is out there?" "This is Commander Morrison from the USS Liberty," Jake called back. We got your distress call. We are here to help." There was silence, then the sound of metal being cut. The plate moved aside, just enough for one person to squeeze through. A woman in dirty mining clothes looked out. Her face was thin and tired. Her eyes were scared, but hopeful. "Commander," she said, "thank God you came. I am Helen Brooks. I run this place." She looked around nervously. "You need to get inside." "Now. They will see you." Jake followed her through the opening. The tunnel beyond was dark and crowded. Hundreds of people sat on the floor. Men, women, and children. They looked hungry and afraid. But they were alive. "Who attacked you?" Jake asked. Helen led him deeper into the tunnel. "We do not know what they are," she said. "They came from space 3 weeks ago. Ships we had never seen before. They destroyed our defenses in minutes. We barely had time to get people into the tunnels." A man in security clothes walked up to them. "I am Tony Martinez," he said, "head of security. What is left of it?" His face was grim. "These things, whatever they are not interested in talking. They just started shooting." Tony showed Jake the weapons they had collected, mining tools mostly. Some small guns from the security office. Nothing that could fight real warships. "We call them harvesters," Helen said. "They set up a blockade around our moon. Every time we tried to send a ship up, they destroy it. We are trapped here." Jake felt sick. His small ship would never be able to fight its way through a blockade. But maybe he could get a message to Earth. Maybe help would come. "How long can you hold out?" he asked. Helen and Tony looked at each other. "Maybe a week," Tony said. "The air scrubbers are failing, and our food is almost gone." Outside, something exploded. The tunnel shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The harvesters were testing the defenses again. Jake knew he had to make a choice. Stay and die with the colonists, or try to get word back to Earth. Either way, time was running out for New Haven. Helen Brooks led Jake deeper into the mining tunnels. The air was thick and hot. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on the tunnel walls. Families huddled together in small groups. Children stayed close to their parents. Everyone was quiet and scared. "We have been down here for 23 days, Helen said. Her voice was tired. "At first we thought it would be a few hours, maybe a day, but they never left." The tunnel opened into a large underground room. This used to be where miners ate their meals. Now it was a shelter for hundreds of people. Blankets covered the floor. People slept wherever they could find space. Tony Martinez showed Jake around the makeshift fort. "We sealed all the tunnel entrances except one," he said. "That way we control who gets in or out." They had done amazing things with mining equipment. Heavy digging machines blocked the main tunnels. Welding tools had been turned into weapons. Even the lunch tables had been flipped over to make shields. "The first day was the worst," Tony continued. "They landed troops outside the town, strange creatures in metal suits. They moved fast and had weapons that could cut through anything." Jake looked at the defensive positions. "How did you stop them?" "We collapsed Tunnel 7 on top of them," Tony said with a grim smile. "Buried about 20 of the creatures under tons of rock. After that, they decided to wait us out instead of coming. Down here, a woman in a white coat walked over to them. She looked young, but her face was serious. "I am Dr. Sarah Kim," she said. "I study the rocks and metals we mine here. But lately, I have been studying them." Sarah led Jake to a corner of the room where pieces of strange metal lay on a table. The metal was dark and seemed to bend light around it. When Jake touched it, it felt warm. "We collected this from their equipment," Sarah explained. "The technology is unlike anything humans have ever made. It uses some kind of energy field that can change the shape of space around it. Jake picked up one of the pieces. It was lighter than it looked. Can you make it work? I have been trying for weeks, Sarah said. But we do not have the right tools down here. This is a mining operation, not a science lab. Kevin Walsh knelt down to examine the alien metal. His eyes were wide with excitement and fear. The energy. Patterns are incredible, he said. This could change everything we know about physics. Helen walked back to them. She was carrying a small device that beeped softly. Air quality monitor, she explained. The scrubbers are failing faster than we thought. Maybe 4 days instead of a week. Jake felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Hundreds of lives depended on what he did next. His ship could not fight the alien blockade, but maybe he could get a message through to Earth. Tell me about their ships, Jake said to Tony. Tony pulled out a tablet with pictures. Drawn on it. The colonists had been watching the aliens carefully. They have 3 big ships and maybe 10 smaller ones, he said. The big ships stay in orbit. The small ones patrol around the moon. But here is the strange part, Tony continued. Sometimes the ships just disappear, not destroyed, just gone. Then they appear somewhere else, a few seconds later. Dr. Kim nodded. I think they can move between different dimensions of space. It makes them almost impossible to hit with normal weapons. Jake studied the drawings. The ships looked like nothing Earth had ever built. They were smooth and curved with no obvious weapons. But the burn marks on the buildings outside showed they had incredible firepower. Have you tried to communicate with them? Jake asked. Helen laughed bitterly. We tried everything. Radio signals, light signals. We even sent someone outside with a white flag. They just ignored us or shot at us. A young man in mining clothes ran up to them. More ships just appeared, he said breathlessly. 3 new ones just popped out of nowhere above the town. Everyone in the shelter looked up nervously. The ceiling was thick rock, but they all knew the aliens were up there somewhere. Jake made a decision. I need to get back to my ship and try to send a message to Earth. But first, I want to see everything you have learned about these creatures. Tony led him to another part of the tunnel where they had set up a command center. Maps of the area covered the walls. Lists of alien ship. Movements were written on every available surface. They follow patterns, Tony explained. Every 6 hours they send ships to check on us. They probe our defenses, but they do not attack in full force. It is like they are studying us. Maybe they are, Dr. Kim said. Maybe they want to understand our technology before they finish us off. Jake looked at the maps and charts. The colonists had been incredibly smart and brave. They had turned a mining operation into a military base using nothing but tools and determination. You have done amazing work here, Jake told them. But you need help from Earth. Real military help. Helen nodded. We know. The question is whether help will come in time. Another explosion shook the tunnel. This one was closer than before. Dust rained down from the ceiling. A few people screamed. They are testing the main entrance again, Tony said. They do that twice a day. So far our barriers have held. Jake knew he had to act fast. Every hour he stayed made the situation worse for everyone. But leaving these people felt like abandoning them to die. I am going back to my ship, he decided. I will try to break through their blockade and get word to Earth. Helen grabbed his arm. Commander, if you do not make it ... you will keep fighting, Jake said firmly. That is what humans do. We do not give up. As he prepared to leave the shelter, Jake looked back at the hundreds of faces watching him. Men, women, and children who were counting on him to bring help. He would not let them down. Jake climbed back through the metal opening into the empty streets of New Haven. The alien ships were still up, there somewhere, watching and waiting. He had to get back to the Liberty and try to send a message to Earth. But first, he needed a plan. The walk back to his ship felt longer than before. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every sound could be the start of an attack. But the streets stayed empty. The harvesters seemed content to wait. Lisa Parker was waiting by the ship when Jake returned. "Commander, we picked up more alien signals while you were gone," she said. "I think they know we are here." Jake nodded. He had expected that. "Get everyone inside. We need to talk." The crew of the Liberty gathered in the small meeting room. 12 people who had signed up to explore space, not fight aliens. But sometimes life did not give you choices. "The situation is bad," Jake told them honestly. "The colonists are trapped underground. They have maybe 4 days of air left. And there are alien ships blocking any escape from this moon." Kevin Walsh raised his hand. "Commander, I studied the alien technology while you were gone. The energy. Readings are incredible, but I think I found something important." Kevin activated the ship's computer. Charts and numbers filled the screen. When they fire their main weapons, the energy signature changes. For about 3 seconds, they become completely solid in our dimension. That is when they are vulnerable. Chief Engineer Roy Campbell studied the data. Roy was a big man with rough hands and a practical mind. He had spent 20 years fixing things that broke in space. 3 seconds is not much time, Roy said. But it might be enough if we can hit them with something big. Like what? Jake asked. Roy smiled grimly. The colonists have been using nuclear mining charges to break apart asteroids. Big explosions. If we could get one of those charges close to an alien ship when it fires. The idea was dangerous and probably impossible. But it was the only chance they had. Lisa looked worried. How do we get close enough? Their ships can disappear and reappear anywhere they want. We use bait, Roy said. One of our shuttles, loaded with mining charges, flies straight at them. When they fire to destroy it, they become solid for 3 seconds. That is when the charges explode. The room went quiet. Everyone understood what Roy was suggesting. Someone would have to fly the shuttle on a suicide mission. I will do it, said Amy Rodriguez. She was the youngest member of the crew, barely 25 years old. But she was also the best pilot Jake had ever seen. Amy, you do not have to ... Jake started. Yes, I do, Amy interrupted. I grew up on frontier colonies like this one. I know what it means when help does not come. These people are counting on us. Double quotes. Jake felt proud and sad at the same time. This young woman was willing to die for people she had never met. That was what made humans special, he thought. They cared about each other. Roy and Amy worked together to modify one of the Liberty shuttles. They removed everything that was not necessary. Seats, life support systems, even the radio. All that space was filled with nuclear mining charges from the colony supply depot. The shuttle will be a flying bomb, Roy explained. When Amy gets close to the alien ship, she arms the charges and ejects in an escape pod. The shuttle continues on autopilot until it hits the target. What if the escape pod does not work? Lisa asked. Roy and Amy looked at each other. They both knew the escape pod was old and might not function properly. But they did not talk about it. Dr. Kevin Walsh had been working on another part of the plan. I studied the attack patterns of the alien ships, he said. They fire their main weapons every 47 seconds when they are hunting. If Amy times her approach correctly, she can predict when they will become vulnerable. The plan was full of risks. The shuttle might be destroyed before it reached the target. The alien ship might not fire when expected. The mining charges might not explode properly. But it was their only hope. Jake made the hardest decision of his career. We do it tomorrow morning. Roy, You have tonight to finish the shuttle modifications. Kevin, you monitor alien ship movements and find the best target. Everyone else, get some rest. But nobody slept that night. They all knew that by tomorrow evening, some of them would probably be dead. Amy spent the night studying the shuttle controls and memorizing the attack plan. She wrote a letter to her family on Earth, knowing they might never receive it. She was scared, but she was also determined. Roy worked through the night, welding charges into place and checking every system twice. The shuttle had to work perfectly. There would be no second chances. Kevin tracked the alien ships and chose their target. The largest harvester vessel stayed in the same orbit, patrol pattern never changing. It was the command ship, he was sure. If they could destroy it, the others might retreat. Helen Brooks and the colonists had been told about the plan. They would use their remaining power to boost the Liberty's communication signal when the ship tried to break orbit. It was a long shot, but it was their only chance to call for help. As dawn came to New Haven, Jake looked out at the alien ships floating silently above the moon. Soon those ships would learn what happened when humans were cornered and desperate. Soon. They would discover that humans never gave up without a fight. The shuttle was ready. Amy was ready. It was time to roll the dice and see if courage could overcome superior technology. Jake gave the order. Launch the shuttle. Let us show these aliens what humans are made of. Amy Rodriguez flew the modified shuttle straight toward the largest alien ship. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her heart was beating fast. The shuttle was heavy with nuclear mining charges. One hit from the alien weapons would turn her into dust. Target locked, she said into her radio. Beginning attack run. The harvester ship hung in space like a dark cloud. It was 3 times bigger than the Liberty and covered with strange angles that hurt to look at. Amy had studied the timing carefully. In 15 seconds, the alien ship would fire its main weapon. That was when it would become solid for 3 seconds. 10 seconds, she counted down. The alien ship began to glow with deadly energy. 5 seconds. The glow became brighter. 3, 2, 1. The alien weapon fired, shooting a beam of pure energy that could cut a mountain in half. But for 3 seconds, the ship was locked in normal space. Amy pressed the button that armed all the nuclear charges. Charges armed, she yelled into the radio. Getting out of here. She pulled the ejection handle. The escape pod shot away from the shuttle, just as the alien ship noticed the threat. The shuttle continued forward on autopilot, loaded with enough explosives to level the city. The alien ship tried to phase out of normal space, but it was too late. The shuttle hit the hull and exploded in a ball of nuclear fire. The blast lit up the entire moon for several seconds. When the light faded, the Harvester command ship was gone. Just pieces of strange metal floating in space. Jake Morrison watched from the Liberty as Amy's escape pod tumbled through space. Get a lock on that pod, he ordered. Bring her home. The destruction of the command ship created chaos in the alien fleet. The remaining ships began firing at random targets. Some shot at the moon's surface. Others fired at empty space. Without their leader, they seemed confused and angry. Now, Jake yelled, full power to engines. Get us to orbit. The Liberty shot upward through the moon's thin atmosphere. Alien ships turned to chase them, but they were too busy fighting each other to coordinate properly. Jake's ship broke through the blockade and reached deep space. Lisa, send the emergency signal to Earth. Everything we know about these aliens. Make sure they understand this is not just a colony in trouble. This is war. The message traveled through space at the speed of light. It would take weeks to reach Earth, but it contained everything humans needed to know about the Harvesters. Their technology, their tactics, their weakness when they fired their main weapons. On Earth, Admiral Patricia Stone was having breakfast when the emergency signal arrived. She was a career military officer who had spent 30 years preparing for threats to human colonies. But she had never imagined anything like this. The message from the Liberty was clear and terrifying. An unknown alien species had attacked New Haven without warning or communication. Their technology was far superior to human weapons. 8,000 civilians were trapped and dying. Admiral Stone called an emergency meeting at Pacific Command. Military leaders from around the world gathered in the secure conference room. The news was worse than anyone had feared. "How long until we can get ships to New Haven?" asked General Paul Brown from the Army. 6 weeks minimum, replied Colonel Frank Davis, Stone's chief of staff. "But Admiral, even if we send everything we have, their dimensional phasing technology makes them nearly impossible to fight." Admiral Stone had been studying the tactical reports all morning. The aliens could disappear and reappear at will. Human weapons were useless against enemies who could not be targeted. But Earth had been preparing for this possibility for decades, even if they had not known it. "Activate the Titan Defense Initiative," she ordered. The room went quiet. The Titan Defense Initiative was Earth's most secret military project. For 20 years, human engineers had been building massive warships designed to fight enemies with unknown capabilities. The ships had never been tested in real combat. Nobody knew if they would work. Captain Marcus Webb commanded the TDF Retribution, the flagship of the Titan fleet. He was conducting training exercises in the outer solar system. When the emergency order came through, Webb was a veteran of every major space conflict in human history. He understood what it meant when colonies went silent. "All ships, this is Webb," he announced to the Titan fleet. "We have a code red situation at New Haven Colony. Unknown aliens with superior technology. 8,000 civilians need immediate rescue." The Retribution and her sister ships were unlike anything else humans had ever built. They were massive, heavily armored, and equipped with experimental weapons that bent the laws of physics. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy an entire planet. "Set course for the Kepler system," Webb ordered. "Maximum speed, and prepare. The quantum disruptors for combat." The quantum disruptors were humanity's answer to dimensional phasing technology. The weapons created fields of twisted space that would lock enemy ships into normal reality. If the theory was correct, the aliens would be trapped and vulnerable. But theory was different from practice. The disruptors had never been tested against real enemies. Webb hoped the human scientists had gotten the math right. The Titan fleet accelerated toward the distant system where New Haven waited. The ships pushed their engines to the maximum, racing against time. Every day they delayed meant more colonists would die. Admiral Stone began mobilizing Earth's entire defense network. If the harvesters were just the first wave of a larger invasion, humanity needed to be ready. Space stations were armed. Planetary defenses were activated. Every human world prepared for war. But first, they had to save New Haven. 8,000 people were counting on Earth to remember them. Webb would not let them down. The Titan fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying humanity's hope and anger toward a distant battle that would decide the fate of human expansion into the galaxy. 4 weeks later, Captain Marcus Webb and the Titan fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Webb expected to find wreckage and silence. Instead, his sensors showed something impossible. New Haven was still sending radio signals. "How are they still alive?" asked Commander Lisa Hayes, Webb's second in command. The answer came from Chief Administrator Helen Brooks herself. Her voice was weak, but determined as it crackled through the communication system. "Captain Webb, thank God you finally came. We have been waiting for you." Webb was amazed. The colonists had been under siege for almost 2 months. By all logic, They should have been dead weeks ago. How did you survive this long? We learned to fight dirty, came the reply from Security Chief Tony Martinez. These aliens are tough, but they are not very smart about ground combat. Over the past month, the colonists had turned their entire mining operation into a weapon. They had flooded some tunnels with poisonous gas from their atmospheric processors. They had rigged mining charges as booby traps throughout the underground passages. Every entrance was defended by people who knew the terrain perfectly. We made ourselves too expensive to kill, Helen explained. Every time they tried to land troops, we made them pay a heavy price. But the real breakthrough had come from Dr. Sarah Kim and her science team. Using pieces of wrecked harvester technology, they had finally built something that could predict when and where the alien ships would appear in normal space. We call it a quantum resonance detector, Dr. Kim reported over the radio. It gives us about 10 seconds warning before they materialize. Not much, but enough to aim our weapons. Tony Martinez had used that 10-second warning to deadly effect. The colonists had built massive railguns using mining equipment. The guns fired chunks of metal at incredible speed. When the harvester ships became solid, the colonists were ready for them. We have shot down 6 of their smaller ships, Tony said with pride. They stopped trying to land troops after we collapsed Tunnel 12 on top of a whole squad of them. Webb smiled as he studied the tactical situation. The aliens had superior technology, but they had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated human determination and creativity. Now they were trapped in orbit around a colony that refused to die. The remaining harvester ships were still dangerous. Webb counted 12 vessels, including 2 large command ships. But without the element of surprise, they had lost their biggest advantage. All Titan ships, this is Webb, he announced to his fleet. Target the alien vessels and prepare quantum disruptors. These creatures wanted to see what happens when humans get angry. Let us show them. The quantum disruptors were humanity's secret weapon. They created fields of twisted space that prevented dimensional phasing. The alien ships would be locked into normal reality and forced to fight on human terms. The TDF Retribution led the attack. The massive ship was 3 kilometers long and hung, armed with weapons that could crack planets. When the quantum disruptors activated, space itself seemed to bend around them. The harvester ships tried to phase out of normal space, but found themselves trapped. For the first time in the battle, they were forced to fight using only conventional physics. Fire all weapons, Webb ordered. The Retribution's main guns fired streams of pure energy. The other Titan ships added their firepower. Human missile swarms filled space between the 2 fleets. After weeks of hiding and running, humanity was finally fighting back. The first harvester ship exploded in a ball of green fire, then a second. The aliens tried to fight back, but their weapons were designed for attacking helpless colonies, not battling warships built for combat. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the alien fleet, reported the communications officer. Put it through, Webb said. The alien voice was strange and mechanical. It spoke in broken English that sounded like it was being translated by a computer. Human ships, we offer terms. Withdraw from this system. We will spare your colony. Webb thought about 8,000 colonists who had been trapped underground for 2 months. He thought about Amy Rodriguez, who had died to give them this chance. He thought about every human colony that lived in fear of attack. Negative, Webb replied. You attacked our people without warning. You tried to murder 8,000 civilians. There are no terms. The battle continued for 6 hours. The harvester ships were tough, and their weapons were powerful, but they could not match the concentrated firepower of the Titan fleet. One by one, the alien vessels were destroyed. The last harvester ship tried to surrender when its weapons failed. Webb ignored the surrender signal and ordered his gunners to finish it. There would be no mercy for creatures who attacked children. When the battle was over, space around New Haven was filled with alien wreckage. The colonists emerged from their underground fortress for the first time in 2 months. They looked up at the sky and saw human ships instead of alien threats. Helen Rooks stood in the main street of New Haven and watched the rescue ships land. Doctors and engineers poured out to help the survivors. Children ran toward their parents, crying with relief. They thought no one would come, Helen said to Webb when he arrived at the colony. They were wrong, Webb replied. Humans do not abandon their own, ever. Admiral Stone received Webb's after-action report while sitting in her office on Earth. The colonists had survived 53 days against impossible odds. They had turned mining tools into weapons and refused to surrender even when death seemed certain. The galaxy would remember New Haven as the place where humanity proved it could not be intimidated. The colonists had shown that human courage and determination could overcome any threat. Earth's colonies were no longer alone in the darkness. They were protected by the strongest force in the galaxy, the refusal of humans to let their people die forgotten.